Bloopers. The Emperor looked over his gathered underlords gravely. I could assign one of you the dangerous task of meeting the Akura monarch, but this is a decision we must make collectively. Let us leave it to a vote. I vote we make Ethan do it, Narugwe said immediately. Ethan, Narusaya agreed. Hold on just a moment, Ethan protested, but he was overridden by a cascade of other underlords. Ethan, Underlord Aurelius, can I vote for Ethan twice? Ethan threw up his hands. Wait, for such a momentous occasion, certainly we should use a more objective approach. Why don't we draw straws? I just so happen to have some right here, Narugwe said, holding up a fistful of wooden sticks. I've written a name on each one myself. Ethan scowled at the sticks. Those all say Ethan. No peeking.
Prosthetic limbs, Fisher Gesher said, are among the easiest constructs for a soulsmith to create. If we had to replace one of your organs, I would be singing a very different tune right now,
But you could do it if you had to, Lyndon asked. Replace my organs, I mean.
What?
If we're already upgrading me, why stop at an arm? Let's give me rocket legs, laser eyes, missiles in my liver. Gesher frowned at him for a moment, then shrugged.
Well, who am I to say no to a patient,
3 days later, Fisher Gesher hung her head before Ethan in shame.
I did get carried away.
Lyndon crawled in on the legs of a spider construct, eyes glowing bright red. He spoke with the voice of a machine. From the moment I understood the weakness of my flesh, it disgusted me, Lyndon said. Fisher Gesher winced.
I may have gone a bit too far.
We've got the biggest hammer in the Empire, and everybody knows it, Narugwe said. A cheer rose from the high gold table. And there it is now, the Underlord cried, pointing out the window of Stormrock. Far in the distance, propped up against 2 mountains, was a gigantic hammer. Tell me how you avoided our security, Renfei said coldly, refusing to let Ethan evade. She couldn't intimidate this man, but she exerted as much pressure as she could to squeeze some kind of answer out of him. Ethan shrugged. Sure, I'll tell you. You see, as long as I'm not on screen, I can do whatever I want. On screen, Renfei repeated, incredulous. Yes, I mean, as long as the readers aren't watching. Here, I'll show you. Try setting up a flashback. What? Focus very hard on a memory that's important to you. Renfei hadn't always wanted to join the Skysworn. As a girl, she'd sifted sand in the desert, dreaming of treasure. She remembered the sun beating down on her neck, shielded only by the shade of her hat, the other children panning at her side, and Ethan squinting into the sun and holding up a hand for shade. This is unpleasant. Flashback to somewhere with a cool breeze. Back in the present, Renfei's eyes snapped open. How did you do that? I don't have to explain anything, Ethan said. It happened off-screen. Jailong sliced through Lyndon's arm. I'm sorry, Lyndon. I win. Lyndon returned a bar of dragon's breath with his remaining hand. You win? We've barely gotten started. You really want to keep fighting while you're down 1 arm? Unless you're ready to surrender. Jailong cut off his other arm. You made me do this. Now the battle's over. You wish. Lyndon leaped in, sending a kick at Jailong's head. With one spin of his spear, Jailong sliced cleanly through both of Lyndon's legs. Let's be done with this. Quitting already, coward? Lyndon shouted from his back. This is only a flesh wound. How are you going to keep fighting now? Lyndon fired dragon's breath from his mouth. Mercy was looking curiously at Lyndon. Wei clan, she asked. Not the Black Flame family. You must have an interesting story. Well, the first 2 volumes can be a little slow, Lyndon said. People say it picks up in book 3. Narugwe slid the leaf back into his lips and continued talking, but now it no longer sounded like he was quoting. Even though this is a low gold against a true gold, it's still a fight between 2 great families. It will reflect official rankings, as well as the reputation of both powers. State your grudges so we may see if they can be settled. He didn't sound like he had much hope for that to happen. I don't have a grudge, Lyndon said. I obviously don't want to do this. Jailong dipped his red-wrapped head. I'm obligated to fight for the Jai clan. I no longer blame you for Sandviper Crawl's death. Hold on, Gwei said. You challenged him to a duel over Sandviper Crawl. Originally, yes, but let me get this straight. Your friend tried to murder him, so now you're trying to murder him because he defended himself. It was for honor. Gwaine narrowed his eyes and chewed for a moment on the long stalk of grass between his teeth. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Case dismissed. Lyndon raised both his healthy arms and cheered. The world spread out in front of him, blue and green and yellow. There were so many clouds and so much ocean. How much of the world was covered in water? He didn't notice any kind of curve. From up here, it was so obvious. The world was flat. How? He wondered aloud. I thought the world was a ball and we stick to its surface because of gravity. Osriel's voice scoffed. A ball? That's ridiculous. How would the people at the bottom stay on? Ethan lay on the ground, groaning and bleeding after the beating Longhook had given him. He could hardly move. Worse, the sleeve of his fine robe had been caught by some embers left in the battle. It began to smoke and, a moment later, caught fire. Ethan coughed as he called for help. I seem to be on fire. Someone! To his great relief, rain began to pour in through a crack in the ceiling. He squirmed to one side, angling himself so that the water would put out the fire. But something stretched over him, blocking the rain. Ethan focused his eyes to see Narugwe standing above him, holding an umbrella. Yan Shomei remembered herself just in time and pulled her blood shadow back. Zeal, the horned boy from the wasteland, was nearby, and she knew him by reputation. He was known to wait on the sidelines for an advantage. I'm not waiting for an advantage, Zeal said dully. I just don't care. An obvious lie. She could tell by his completely relaxed posture as he sat on his rock that he was confident he could survive any ambush. His yawn was just bait to lure in predators. You won't fool me, Yan Shomei hissed. Zeal slumped into the sand and started to snore. Longhook turned his good eye to Aurelius. My fate does not end here. Ethan's smile softened. Yeah, but it does, though. Blue-white light fell from the sky and speared Longhook through the spirit. Ethan ran a hand over his face. Everything ends, that's what I should have said. That would have been so much cooler. Can I try that again? No, he's already dead. That's a shame. Orthos walked up, closing the circle. Yeren eyed him up and down, eyebrows raising. You look all polished up. You get a new shell? The turtle raised his head, and Lyndon felt a flash of smug pride through their bond. I sure did. I'm a convertible now. The top of Orthos's shell split and slid apart, folding back into itself. A pair of sunglasses dropped from nowhere onto Orthos's eyes. Later, losers, Orthos said. Then he dashed away. Yeren dashed for the doorway. Lyndon scorched his channels, black flame madra burning his body and soul as he forced it to move faster. Finally, a bar of black flame tore through the thin, green metal frame of the portal. Instantly, the window into another world winked out. Lyndon's breath of relief disrupted his cycling technique for a moment. He had saved Yeren's life. The golden dragon girl rushed up to him, shoved Lyndon aside, and grabbed his shoulders. What have you done? We'll have to find another way out, Lyndon said reasonably. There is no other way out. Lyndon blinked. Wait, you guys don't have an emergency exit? Or, another doorway? It's a pocket world. Why would they need a second door? Surely the sages and heralds outside. They told us not to break the doorway. They said to make absolutely sure not to break the door, or you're going to die in there, slowly and painfully. Oh. And so they died, slowly and painfully. But none slower or more painfully than Lyndon, whose stupidity doomed them all. The end. I will add a gift of my own to the Black Flame Empire in compensation, the Sage of the Silver Heart said serenely. I will also allow each of you to take all that you can carry from this place. Lyndon's void keys zipped open. Apologies, he said, cutting off the flow of madra. I don't know why this keeps happening. Charity cocked her head. This is a regular occurrence. Well, Dross began to project memories into Lyndon's head. The Skysworn gave him a peek inside their soulsmith foundry. Lyndon's void key zipped open. In the Nightwheel Valley, a group of Satian fighters left their camp unattended, weapons and scales and chests of natural treasures sitting out in the open. Lyndon's void key zipped open. Mercy drew out a jeweled necklace, a keepsake of her family's.
"This is my prized possession," she began. "Given to me by my mother."
She was cut off when Lyndon's void key zipped open. The other 3 healers emerged from Yaren's tent. They were led by an older woman, a true gold with gray hair tied up in a bun. She turned to Lyndon with a serious expression.
"Her lifeline is severely damaged," she said in a low voice. "We have stabilized her, but we cannot fully repair the life force she lost."
"Oh, I can," Lyndon said casually. He reached into his void key, pulled out a stoppered vial that glowed green, and tossed it into the tent. "Hey, Yaren," he called. "Drink that!" There came an emerald flash from inside the tent. Moments later, Yaren shouted back, "I'm better!"
"Good thing you took that life well water with you," Dross said brightly. "This could have been a real problem."
Fisher Gesha glared at Ethan through the lens over one eye.
"If a customer was rude enough to come in at this hour, I would give them a beating."
"By all means," Ethan began, but Gesha cut him off.
"I mean it. A customer showed up after hours, and I beat him with a sock full of rocks. He took me to court. I served 16 years in Black Flame City Penitentiary for aggravated assault. Lost my house, my job. I've been rebuilding ever since, but you're never the same after that. Never the same."
Lyndon and Ethan took one careful step away. Narugwe reached up to the map that hung on his wall, pulling it down and spreading it over his desk in one motion. It was a map of the Black Flame Empire. Lyndon sighed in satisfaction.
"What's that about?"
Dross asked him. "Oh, it's nothing. I was just thinking about how much I love maps."
"Really? How much do you love maps?"
"I'll put it to you this way. If anyone ever wrote a story about my life, I'd make absolutely sure it had a map.